Welcome to this week's MISD Update. I'm Cole Sellers, and today with us is MISD Director of College and Career Readiness and Guidance, Becky Wigington. Welcome. Today's topic is something we usually don't want to talk about, but September is Suicide Prevention Month. Can you explain the background behind this month-long recognition?
Sure, absolutely. So we recognize suicide prevention the month of September really to raise awareness. As you mentioned, it is a difficult topic. And so the more we raise awareness about prevention strategies and tools, it helps open that conversation to reduce the stigma that surrounds the topic of suicide.
So what are the warning signs people should be aware of?
That's a great question. This is something that is very important for all of us to know as we are maybe recognizing or don't understand how to recognize something in an individual that we love or care for. And so when you're determining if someone is at risk of suicide, there are a couple of things that really could give you some warning signs to help get them to intervention. The key is knowing who the person is and if this behavior is different. Oftentimes, some of the things that I'm going to read, you may think, well, that could be anyone who's maybe been up all day or just tired. Mm-hmm. But what you're really looking for is this different from what you normally see. So a few of them are talking about wanting to die or kill themselves or looking for a way to do so. Talking about feelings of hopelessness or having no reason to live. Sometimes individuals will give things away, prized possessions, that's a sign. Talking about being a burden to others, that they really don't want to be here because they're just burdening other people. Acting anxious or agitated, that's different from what they maybe do normally. And that could be in a variety of ways. It could also be sleeping too much or too little. Any other behaviors that are risky behaviors, that is not normal. Extreme mood swings. All these things, they may not have all of those warning signs, but all those things are different behaviors to look for, in addition to knowing that person and maybe the situation or scenarios that they're dealing with in life.
Right, and you mentioned there's a stigma concerning like talking about suicide. How can we help reduce that stigma?
That is really the number one goal of Suicide Prevention Month, and reducing the stigma is so key, and it helps us to understand there are a lot of myths surrounding suicide. And so I'm going to review a few of those because when we dispel those myths, it helps us open that conversation and prevent a suicide. So the first one, a lot of individuals think that talking about it actually may cause or encourage suicide attempts, when really that is absolutely a myth. Talking about it, evidence shows that opens the conversation and really helps the individual or family provide the resources and information and supports that person needs. So when they're talking about it and it's opening that conversation, you can get down to the heart of what's going on with that person. So that is a myth that talking about it encourages it. Another one is that suicide deaths happen without warning. Attempts or death happen without warning, and that is also not true. The interesting part about that is it's really just because the warning signs maybe weren't recognized. And so that's why it's important to look at those warning signs that we already talked about and think about that and always be on high alert, especially if you know someone that is going through a situation or behaving maybe in a different manner. Another myth is that most young people thinking about it never seek or ask for help. And that's also not true. Again, it goes along with recognition, but most young people often tell their peers in some form or fashion. It may not be outward, like the exact words, but they may be telling their peers in other ways, nonverbal, writing, behaviors like giving away things, some of those warning signs. So oftentimes they are telling. So that's what we encourage students and peers to really know what to do and to help by telling an adult so that we can get the support to a student. Another myth is once a person is intent on suicide that there's no way of stopping it, and that is absolutely not true. There are ways that we can prevent it if we know how to help that person. And so when or if you know that an individual may need help, it's knowing how to get that help so prevention methods can be put into place. Appropriate counseling may be required. If there's something that's going on with a person and you're not sure, staying with them is super important, making sure that they are not left alone, talking to an adult. Oftentimes peers and adolescents are afraid to tell an adult because they're afraid that they're going to get that person in trouble. And so there's this uneasy about, maybe I've breached confidence. That is something you always breach confidence with. You should never keep that a secret so that an adult can help and provide support to that individual.
So given all this information, what are the resources that individuals or families may use that need assistance?
Perfect. So that's the best thing for us to talk about is how do you get help? Because as an individual, whether you're an adult or a student, is what do I do? So as long as if you think it and you've recognized it, as I mentioned, stay with that person, make sure you're giving them to an adult that can help. But there are other ways, especially if you're home or it's the weekend, you're not sure. There's a National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, and it's 1-800-273-TALK. It's 24/7. So you can call that lifeline and they will assist with that person or you or whoever is calling, the individual that's calling. If you think it's something that immediate assistance, like local immediate assistance, 911 is always an option. And then there's a crisis text line that's actually very helpful. A lot of youth will use the text line because that's a more normal form of communication, and that is texting home to 741-741, and that's also monitored 24/7, and that's a lifeline that they'll text you right back and will communicate the next steps to get help.
All right, I'd like to thank Mrs. Wiggingston for bringing our attention to this subject.